It's off to a good start.
Yes, exactly. Hopefully it won't be quite so long of a wait today. So yeah, thanks. I'm trying to think of the announcements. So if anybody, we still have football tickets. And so if anybody who hasn't already told me that they want tickets wants to go, you're on the list, Bree. Please let us know. There's still tickets. And Mayhem is this afternoon. So we have a few sessions, and we're concluding with Mayhem. And so once again, it's very informal. You don't feel like it has to be some big presentation. It could be 5 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, and just kind of show us something cool that you've done or something not cool that you need help with, whatever, whatever. We'd love to see it. And I will clear myself off the stage so that you can enjoy Rowan's talk. Rowan is from Hop Studios. And we'd like to thank Hop Studios once again for their generous sponsorship. I do have some other sponsor announcements, but I'll do it in another break. And so Rowan Sentesy is going to talk with us about vibe coding and agentic workflows and the art of context, and I'm going to get out of the way.
Wow.
Take it away.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Yeah, so you read that much better than I did when I ran through this last night. I kind of stumbled over that. So vibe coding, agentic workflows, and the art of context, from chaos to clarity with AI. Yeah, so let's get into it. My name is Rowan. I live in a very small community, about 6 hours and 2 ferries from Vancouver, north of Vancouver in British Columbia, Canada. So I'm pretty far from here. It was 3 flights and a beautiful remote spot, very different from London. So I'm really enjoying the city and the density and the history here. So thanks for bringing me out here. I've been with Hop Studios for 6 years in a month. And yeah, I've got some fun stuff to talk about this morning. So here's what we're going to cover. First, the journey. I'll show you my experience building a modern web app with AI, from the initial euphoria through to complete chaos, and then figuring out how to systematize and succeed with the project. The project's called G School. I'll get more into that later. Second, the lessons. So when I did this work, I didn't know what I was doing, but I sort of like went full in with this vibe coding thing just to see how far can I push this, how much can it do, what's it capable of. It was a bit of an experiment. So through this process, actually building a real thing and then launching it, I got some details, some tips, some tricks to share with you. So some fundamentals that really just transformed how I did that work and what made this possible to actually succeed. And thirdly, after I finished this project, this one website launch, I've been applying these principles to my everyday work at Hop Studios and trying to like leverage these tools and processes more on a day-to-day workflow situation. And I call that flow notes. We'll talk about that later too. So my goal with this talk, first of all, I just want to say, like, AI is everywhere. Everybody's probably already using different tools, experimenting. I am not an expert on AI, but I have been through the ringer, and I've had some experiences that I feel like you might learn from, and you may be able to avoid some of the pitfalls that I did while I was doing this work. I know a few things about this space of vibe coding and agentic coding and how to use this in my workflow. And so really, I'm just sharing what I know, and I do not claim to know everything. It'd be pretty hard these days. So I'll share experiences. I hope to inspire you. I hope to show you some approaches that may work for you as well. So yeah, how did I get here? A little background about me and my journey as a web developer. So been working with EE and kind of like focused on the web space for about 16 years. I built the first version of this G School site, which was called bellyfit.com in 2009 on EE2. Had no idea what I was doing. It was a really good opportunity for me to learn and try something new and actually build a website using a framework. That was really cool, super exciting to use something that other people have had success with and be able to produce something that worked for many years quite well. I did some freelancing sort of in the in-between years while we worked on the BellyFit business. And in 2009, I decided to get a real job, and I joined Hop Studios. And I'm super excited and grateful for that opportunity too. Yeah, it's working with Hop has been like kind of like a supercharger again for my like learning and workflow and learning from all the systems and knowledge in the organization. That's just not something I had before as a freelancer. It was just like all of a sudden everything available to me was leveled up, all the tools, all the methodologies. So I've been really enjoying that time with Hop Studios so far, and it's been really helpful and fun. So the last couple of years, as BellyFit, the business, so I've run that with my wife, Alice, it's kind of been like shifting, and we've been waiting for the next iteration of that. Like, what is it going to be? The business was still making some money, but it was like a little bit of a side project for me. And we were kind of like waiting for the next shift. And a lot of that had to do with my wife's journey with it as well, and figuring out what she wanted to do, because it was largely her creative project. So the business was transforming. There was a new business model. We were doing a rebrand. And I had very little time to actually spend on it. I shifted to 4 days a week with Hop Studios a year and a half ago or something, and was doing 1 day a week with BellyFit. But it wasn't enough to like conceive of a whole new business and build a whole new thing. So meanwhile, as this little shift in BellyFit was incoming, which I didn't fully understand yet, AI was starting to emerge. And at Hop, we were really, really lucky to have Travis, who was like super supportive of us exploring the tools. And right away, we had corporate access to ChatGPT and Claude AI, and basically anything we wanted to experiment with, we had it, which is awesome. So I would also mention that we recently adopted Cursor, and we have a paid Cursor account with the corporation, which has been primo. It's like it's an IDE just like VS Code, if you're not familiar, but it has a really seamless integration with AI workflows, agents, auto-suggest, all sorts of awesome stuff. So if you're not familiar with Cursor, highly recommend it. I didn't realize it, but looking back at sort of the preparing for this talk, I was kind of like waiting for AI to get to a point where I could do something crazy with it, waiting for it to mature, and new possibilities were opening up. Nobody really knew what was coming or what was possible. Like a year ago, I never would have seen this coming of what I was able to do this year. But I started sort of hearing about in the lore of the AI world and YouTube videos and stuff. I heard about this like agent thing and this vibe coding thing. So I was pretty intrigued, and I was keeping tabs on it and just trying to keep up with the developments of like, well, what are people doing? Are they actually building real stuff? Is it work? Is it garbage? Is it AI slop? Tammy mentioned the slop thing. There's probably a lot of that out there, but like half-finished projects that are like, oh, let's build a thing, and then it's like, oh, that's cool, and then kind of shovel it to the side and go back about your business. So yeah, my curiosity really got the better of me here. The technology was moving really fast, and this year everything seemed to kind of like line up for me. So there's a bit of a parallel which I want to share about between when I first started with EE 16 years ago and this year, and it's been really interesting to kind of like overlay these journeys for me. So as I said, I started with EE with no experience whatsoever. I've never used the CMS. I shopped around and I dabbled with Drupal and WordPress and Joomla, and then kind of settled on EE, mostly because it was the only thing I could figure out how to get working on my computer. I was like, it works, so I'll try that. I was a total noob. So I found a developer, I think probably through the partner network or something on the EE website back in the day, and hired him to help me basically for a couple days to just like, you know, I outlined the site and what I wanted it to do, and he was like, cool, let's build that out. And so he built out all these channels and fields and got it all kind of set up with templates and showed me around. And it was like a kickstart for my learning to just get a site that sort of worked, sort of did what I wanted it to, and then some tips about like, oh, you can do that this way and this that way, and just kind of learning the roadmap. That was a huge, you know, jump start in my learning for that project. After that, super self-taught pretty much for the next 10 years until I joined Hop Studios. And I did a lot of great stuff with the site. I didn't do it right. I definitely didn't do it right. Reading forum posts about, oh, everything should be in partials and you shouldn't have embeds, and sort of learning all this stuff and trying to figure out how to make it load better, and why is this page taking 10 seconds to load, and just a lot of trial and error and really like bumbling around, to be honest. But I did build a pretty functional site for our business that made a good amount of money for like over 10 years. I had subscription services, I had e-commerce, member-only area. We had e-learning courses and online video delivery. It was like a pretty full-featured website. I was, yeah, pretty stoked about the possibilities of what EE could do. Yeah, and it worked great for over a decade. So that learning pattern is kind of like been repeated for me in a different way, but like this year, I again decided to jump fully into some new technologies and be a noob again. It was a lot of fun to kind of like just leave everything behind and try something absolutely new. So I'm really grateful for the BellyFit business and the rebranded G School business to give me this opportunity again to like push my learning and get into some new territory, advance my skills. And if you haven't guessed, it's not in EE. So we'll talk about that a little bit. So, elephant in the room, why did I abandon EE? So just to be clear, obviously I'm aware of the audience here. I love Expression Engine, and I work with it all the time at Hop Studios. Love the direction it's going. I love that Packetide's championing the brand and all the add-on work. So it's in a really good spot, and yeah, it's powerful, flexible. You know all these things. So the decision is not about the shortcomings of EE per se, but there's a couple other things to keep in mind here. So that bellyfit.com site was still running Expression Engine 2.10. So a little bit of technical debt. I think for the last 6 years, every time I have a check-in with Travis, I'm like, oh yeah, we're gonna update BellyFit soon. We're gonna update BellyFit soon. And so he was always very supportive of that. He's like, yeah, what do you need? Let's do it. And, but honestly, it just was a combination of these factors of, there's so much in there, and how much of that do I actually need to bring forward? So a decade of technical debt, that's a lot. And as I mentioned, the business itself was shifting. So we were like really not clear of what the new thing was yet. So it was kind of hard to invest the time and energy into updating this thing that we didn't need to carry forward. And I'd say about 90% of what we had built on that site was going to be left behind. So it didn't make a ton of sense to just bring that all forward and upgrade everything into a EE7 site. And obviously, I mentioned it before, the real reason for this shift was because I was curious. I just really wanted to push AI to its limits and see what I could do with it and learn a whole bunch of new stuff. So curiosity and growth really drove me forward here. So yeah, AI slop. I was really aware of this term, really aware of people messing around with these code builders and agents and vibe coding platforms. And I was curious. I was like, okay, well, are these developers doing this? Do they know what they're doing? Are they smart? Like, what are the limits here? Why is that not working? Why are they producing things that aren't serviceable or launchable? I had questions. Can I vibe code a custom modern website without a familiar stack? Was it time? Was now the time to jump into vibe coding? Was the technology ready? Was I ready? I don't often get chances to radically shift my awareness, especially in career, and it's kind of like a rare opportunity. So while I was kind of dabbling with this concept of like, can I pull this off? I was, of course, chatting with Claude and ChatGPT on the web and planning, exploring, just trying to see like, what's possible, what can we do? So I was asking things like, how are top-tier enterprise websites being built these days? How can I build a modern and custom site like Netflix? So the risk was really exciting, and all this unknown technology was really enticing. And my comfort zone was like left way in the rearview mirror. Into the unknown I go. So there's another interesting requirement that emerged for me during this sort of like planning process. How can I avoid learning everything deeply? Like, how can I be lazy? How can I maximize the progress and the effectiveness of this build, but like minimize my effort, right? That's the goal, that's the dream. And as I said, all these factors all aligned together. The right project, it was the right time, and all this promise of AI and vibe coding was just tangible. AI was obviously required for this project. Like, there's absolutely no way I would have even thought about doing this had it not been for this supposed promise of vibe coding. A lot of hope, a lot of trust, and I basically used AI for everything, top to bottom, start to finish. Planning, early documentation, later documentation, which we'll get into, and obviously all the code writing. It's all AI driven. Very few times did I actually get in and edit things and change CSS values, and it was very minimal actual coding. A lot of prompting. My assistants were very affirming and encouraging, which I thought was nice. They were very positive. They thought it was a great idea. The stack and the plan, the initial tech spec, it sounded great, especially if I didn't have to do the work. It was great. And decision making, so like architectural decisions, I was heavily relying on what AI recommended. So in a way, the collaborator of this like nebulous AI tool was sort of taking all the current trends and statuses and all these different tools and essentially recommending what's current and what's new, which is kind of what I wanted. I wanted it to like direct me towards like what's the best thing, the best tool to handle this type of project. Yeah, I learned a lot during planning. I was able to refine things. I was able to crystallize my requirements, but only shallowly, just like on the surface. I was like figuring out, oh, what the heck does that do? That fits in here. Okay, cool. Let's try that. Look at it. Look at the pricing. Yeah, it's not too bad. Let's go for it. Requirements were getting checked off. It all seemed to fit together. The plan was getting solid, and I had some early success. I started dabbling and actually doing vibe coding to like migrate data, which I'll talk about in a bit. And everything was like super smooth. It was so fast. It was doing exactly what I wanted. Short iteration cycles, and I was getting to the results I wanted. I was like, man, this is great. So let me tell you how it went and what I learned along the way. First of all, yeah, this is the old BellyFit site, which is not that old. That was from a year ago. The homepage, and that's the new homepage. Obviously, you can't see anything from these screenshots. I just wanted to give a shout out to my wife, who's very excited for me to come home in a couple of days. But yeah, it's my wife, Alice. Yeah, so still running Expression Engine 2. And that's the new G-School site. So with Expression Engine, this should be fundamental for all of you. You have everything in one place. You've got content management, templating, user management, authentication, e-commerce, Heartthrob, that's what I was using. Everything's all there in one file system, one database. It's all kind of together. It makes sense. And it does the job really nicely. You know this already. So let's compare these stacks a little bit. Obviously, on the left is the Expression Engine. And on the right, this is what I kind of settled on for like the concepts of how we do this. I didn't really know what these things meant, to be honest. And I was like, do I have to know them? Yeah. So I was a little naive, let's say, getting into this stuff. So instead of monolithic, like this idea of everything in one place, that's the probably somewhat derogatory term for things like Expression Engine or WordPress. Shifting from that to distributed microservices over a bunch of different cloud applications. Composable, and so instead of being hosted all in one spot, we're distributed over 8 different cloud services. One code base in EE, and for G-School, it's kind of spread out, and these different services interact in different ways. Traditional and headless is for the content-driven part of the site. Kind of cool. I'd heard about these things, didn't know what they meant. So what did I build? Okay. So G School is a subscription video delivery system. So we got hundreds of hours of video content, and our goal was to create a super low friction registration and payment process, and a really seamless, super snappy UX, which was the goal, to make this as seamless and easy for our users to get in and consume the content. Instead of one system doing everything, 8 specialized services, each doing one thing really well, and all connected with APIs. So Sentesy is the CMS I chose. It's like this headless, cloud-based REST API type CMS. Pretty cool, some interesting stuff. Also, shout out to the EE team who's using the focal point thing. I was talking to Matt about this the other night for images. So I've seen this was actually in Sentesy. It does a really good job of image handling and cropping, so you can pick a head in a photo, and then you get all these different crop variations, but it always shows the thing you want. So I'm stoked to see how you guys implement that in EE. That's going to be great. Stripe, obviously, handling my payments and subscriptions. And I was very new to Firebase. So Firebase is a Google collection of services, basically. And I'm using Firebase authentication for user stuff. Firestore is like their cloud-based data, real-time database stuff, which handles stuff like playlists and watch history and just the rapid read-write stuff, or CRUD stuff. And I'm hosting on Firebase as well. So kind of having this heavily Google-centered platform for a lot of these core services made sense to me, and it works really well, in my opinion. So each of these services needs its own API integration. The tools scale, they're load balanced, they have CDNs built in. They're sort of like designed for this type of application. Yeah, I said that. So the trade-offs. So instead of using one system I know deeply, I'm now using all these new tools that I've never really touched. And on this side of things, I'd never used Next.js. I've only looked at React code. I don't know what it does. Never really written TypeScript. Very new to Tailwind. So all these things were like, yeah, they all sound great. But my JavaScript skills were very like client-centered. Like I knew how to write scripts on the site to do stuff and interact, but I'd never really dealt with this like JavaScript everywhere thing, which is what Next.js does. So JavaScript on the server side and on the client side. Kind of a cool concept. I didn't really know why you would do that or how it worked or any of that stuff, but it was definitely a learning experience. Yeah, it's going back to school. Anybody unfamiliar with this story? So this is The Sorcerer's Apprentice from Fantasia. Quite old, a great little parable from my experience. So Mickey is the apprentice. He's left alone. He's given chores to do. He's supposed to haul water and fill things up. I don't remember the exact details, but it's pretty manual, boring work. So what does any smart apprentice do? He kind of like steals the sorcerer and master's magical hat, and he's like, hey, I can do magic too. So he uses magic to automate it. He enchants the broom to do the work for him. And at first, glory, it's working. The broom's hauling water. Mickey's thrilled. So it was a parable for this process because I was trying to be lazy. I was trying to get more done and do less. It seemed to make sense. And just like Mickey, it worked really well at the beginning. He didn't understand what he was doing, just like me. So I lived some of this story with the G School build, and we'll talk about where my journey splits off a bit. I was optimistic, just like Mickey, lazy, and trying to get maximum output for minimum work. So this phase I call the AI euphoria phase. So the magic works. So far, everything's clicking. I got AI helping me architect this whole system, picking the tools, writing a tech spec that can just knock it out of the park. I settled on Next.js, as I mentioned. I found a theme forest theme that was built or had Next.js at the core of it, which I was like, that matches, that's cool, let's use that. For the UI head start, and I had the first challenge I really tested, the proof of concept for this vibe coding thing was how do I get 10 plus years of video content spread out of over like 4 or 5, well, probably 3 or 4 channels out of my old EE site. How do I bring that into my new CMS? So I found an old JSON plugin for Expression Engine 2 by Rob Sanchez. I don't know if anybody knows who that is. I don't, but thanks, Rob. And it didn't work completely because there was field types and stuff that weren't supported. So I vibe coded the patches to make it support my new things and get all the relationships exported in a JSON format. I got this export, got these huge blobs of all my content. It was awesome. And then I wrote the migration script to like push it all into Sentesy CMS. And iterated through, messed around with it, tried to get it tweaked, built the schemas in Sentesy. It's like the database or I guess the field sets you call them. It was really fun and satisfying because I could just give it feedback and it would like fix the thing and do it again or clean it up. And it was amazing how seamless that workflow was and how fun and satisfying it was. So yeah, I whipped up the front end and was pretty quickly able to see my video content working in this Next.js web app. It was pretty phenomenal. Yeah, this will be easy. It's gonna be great. I have a couple little clips here, super short clips, and I want to show them to you. These are just little like early successes that. This is the April 5th one. Yeah. So, oops. I'm gonna have to do this. No, it didn't work. Okay, one sec. Okay. So, I'm not sure if you can see this. This is just a little video clip of me doing my work. So this is migrating content on Vimeo to update permissions on the actual Vimeo. Oh, that didn't play everything. Let's go back to the beginning. It was more impressive when I show all the screens. There we go. Yeah, so here, this is when I actually had my spec in Google Docs. And I'm using Claude, I think, here to kind of like vet things and update stuff and plan things out. I'll play that again, just because it's not too long. In my main IDE, I'm using this tool called Klein at this time, which was pretty powerful, did a lot of work for me, writing code and doing stuff. And then this process is actually working in my min dashboard that I built to actually do the work. So pretty rad. And then I'll show you one more here, the next one. This is a little bit later, a week or so later. Similar concept, but I'm using multiple IDEs and doing vibe. This is what vibe coding looks like, I guess is what I'm saying. So I've got all these tools working. I've got things processing. The AI is chomping away at stuff. It's doing edits. In this case, I'm updating a QA tracking system, which sounded like a good idea and actually was. And this is, I think this is VS Code's Copilot working there. And then I'm on the other screen, I'm actually doing QA and getting error logs and troubleshooting stuff. So yeah, just a couple little like snippets into like, what does it actually look like? So there you go, now you know. Let's see if I can get these screens back on. That's what I was afraid of. 1 second. I'll switch away from it, but then, so I want Panasonic TV to mirror projector. Hey, all right. So yeah, those are a couple little fun. I'm glad I took those because it was like a phase, and I haven't done things like that. It very quickly my workflow changed, and I'll show you why. Okay. So this overconfidence trap. Yeah, I was building auth systems. I was building a min dashboard. I was doing user interactions. Everything was just flowing smoothly. It's coming together super fast. I'm thinking AI got me this far. I've got this site. So much of this stuff is working. It's not that hard. I don't need much time to actually get the site launched. Should be fine. So what any overconfident developer would do, we set an aggressive launch deadline. We shot for a May launch. It was like, sure, let's give it a whirl. I booked a full week off of Hop Studios to do the launch sprint. And in my mind, I was on track. I just needed to find enough time to do enough prompts to get it done. More prompts, more features, and more brooms, which in the story, as you know, I think he intentionally cuts the broom in half and spawns another broom to do more work. It seemed to make sense. All right. So, the inevitable, as you may have guessed, there was a sticky situation here. So my launch sprint arrives. I'm blasting through features and fixes. Things were moving pretty well, but my list of required features was not getting smaller. The more I got into features, the more I was like, oh no, it's got to be this way. It's got to be this way. You know, tweaking things, making it work better. I didn't seem to be actually making a ton of progress, even though I was building lots of stuff that was really important. And the launch date is approaching. How do we get this thing launched? I was kind of starting to panic a little bit. As of yet, I had not got this thing on the web yet at all. There was no way for any beta testers to look at it. There was no way for my wife to look at it. She came to my office and I was like, look at the site. I did not understand how these node-based and React-based tools actually work for deployment. So it was time to push this to the deployment server, or the development server. I was using at the time GitLab continuous integration, continuous deployment job, thinking that was the best way to do it. I vibe coded it. I was like, yeah, we just got to iterate through this. It'll figure it out, no problem. I'll trust that we'll get it done. Like, it's never let me down yet, except every time I try to deploy, build error. Wait, try again, do something. Oh, another build error. I was like, this sucks. This is not working. I could not get this thing on the web for the life of me. It was so excruciating. I was seriously reflecting on my life decisions at that point. I thought it was going to be simple and easy. It tends to be quite simple and easy with monolithic sites. You know, you have a database, you have files, you just put the files up and do the database changes and it's good to go. But this was just a totally different ballgame. I didn't understand the build requirements. What's a mono repo? I had no idea, but I had one. Sounded like a good idea a couple weeks ago. And to add salt to the wound, every time this thing builds, it has to compile this whole Next.js application and then send it up. And that takes time. And so it was taking 10 or 20 minutes just for one iteration to actually try a deployment. So I'd try something, we'd tweak something, I'd commit it, watch the job go, and watch it fail. It was like, basically like, yeah, developer hell. Excruciating, crazy making. I've never seen anything like this before in 20 years of developing. I kept thinking, okay, I'm just like one prompt away. I'm just one more prompt. I'll get there. I just have to say the right thing and it'll figure it out. It kept suggesting these workarounds. It was like, oh, well, this is the problem because you're doing that. And I was like, okay, great, do it. And, okay, great, do it. And I honestly, I couldn't have debugged it for the life of me. So I was getting nowhere. No site on the web, no beta testers, no way for Alice to even see the site online. I was humbled, to say the least. Desperation increases, and then the agents are suggesting, oh, well, it's doing this, it's failing there, so why don't you try this method? And then what I ended up agreeing to was gutting out a whole bunch of the core functionality of the app to get it launched. So sure, just delete a bunch of stuff until we get this launched. Why not? I'm desperate. So I eventually got it to build and deploy, and then I tested it, and the site just didn't do anything that I needed it to. It was all static pages. There's no dynamic content. I was like, this is not my site. This is not what I need. So all the benefits of Next.js are getting gutted from the build. So basically a useless deployment. So that's the only thing I got on the web at that phase. Yeah, very, very unclear about what I was building and why I was doing this at this point. Strategy is getting me nowhere, and I failed, obviously. The brooms are multiplying, the water's rising, I was drowning. This is the flood, the total chaos, and I did not have a good command of these tools. I went from this will be easy to I have no idea what I'm doing in about a week. So needless to say, we missed the deadline. And surprisingly, telling AI I was frustrated didn't help. My complaints went on deaf ears. Brute force prompting did not solve my problems. Gutting the site functionality did not solve my problems. I was kind of screwed. So yeah, I think this shows, yes, here we go. So May chaos. So this is just a couple little git commits that I thought were kind of funny. This purple branch here, I don't know if you can see that too clearly, but this purple branch is the trying another way to deploy. Panic commits. I'm throwing things at the wall. This is what it looks like when you're messing around with things you don't understand. So in case you can't see it, still blocked, trying again, another attempt, fixing issues, testing again, same commit message. Changed node env to bypass pipeline job error. You know, like I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Let's just try it. Keep trying, keep trying. Didn't work. Whee! Okay, so brutal truth I had to face. I was on an island. I was alone. In my day job, I'm lucky enough to have mentors and senior devs that I can ask, a support team that I can rely on. So all my risky decisions, all these things that I was excited to try, they kind of blew up in my face. On this project, it was just me and AI. I hit a ceiling. They recommended the stack I didn't know, wrote code I didn't understand, and offered solutions that didn't match the vision I had set out. It's a real limit. It couldn't hold the whole project scope in one prompt. I couldn't say, write my docs, read my docs all at once, and then now you know what I'm doing, so do it. It got to a point where the complexity was so vast, there was just limits I was hitting everywhere. Context windows were pitifully small compared to my vision and the project requirements. So retreat and regroup. So pump the brakes. We let go of the launch. Took a real break. So that kind of launch pressure, I don't know, you probably all felt it, but it was needed, much needed at that time. Not a lot of sleep, not a lot of relaxation during that couple weeks leading up to that attempted launch. It was exhausting. I was in a situation that prompt and pray was not working. On one hand, it was a failure, but on the other hand, it was really a required phase for me to figure out how to do this. I didn't give up. This is where the sorcerer's apprentice metaphor kind of breaks down in the story, or I guess you could say, this is where I had to become the sorcerer, if you will. AI got me 80% to a site that worked pretty well on my local computer. That was pretty good. But that last 20%, obviously I was blocked on this deployment thing. I needed to really actually understand what I was doing to get there. I had to increase my capacity. I had to develop new approaches. I had to learn the stack more deeply. I had to become the sorcerer. Time to learn the magic properly. So there's some backtracking required. Lovely thing about Git, it's not too hard to do. Take one step back and you will see the vastness of the sea and the sky. I think that's a real Chinese proverb, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if you can read that, but I can't. So yeah, a bit of time to rest does wonders, and grateful for the change of pace. My stakeholders, also my wife, was being very generous and understanding. That's good. Not always the case in the corporate world, let me say. I was deep in, but I was not defeated. I had to revert some things, take a different approach. I lost, I guess, a week or two of work, if you can call it that. Dozens of hours, but not a lot of progress. I admit, however, yeah, definitely not my best work that I lost, so that wasn't a huge issue. My workflow and approach got me into some troubled place, and my hubris got the best of me. I kept a level head and pressed on. Let me show you what that looked like. So this is later in May, a couple of weeks after the missed deadline. So you can see this green branch. It's really small. I'll zoom in a second. But this is me restoring some work and backtracking and getting this back on track. There. So look at the green branch. Yeah, I'm actually pretty grateful that I was authentic with my commits writing these things, because it's actually makes for a better story. And it's fun to kind of look back on it and smile. You know, obviously at the time it's not always fun, but it's good to reflect. So a couple themes here. Document progress, a plan, doc updates. Okay. Progress on cleanup branch, deploy success. That's promising. New doc to track progress. Doc import from broken branch. Progress on merging work from dead branch. Got deploy to work, going to bed. So notice the pattern, documentation. This is the important realization. We're going to dive into that, let me tell you. So restore a solid foundation, bring back what was valuable, move forward with clarity, and deploy success. That's promising. This is kind of a fun little graph, just for educational purposes. This is actually the commit velocity over the project. So the spikes in April and May, that's the launch sprint that I talked about. This atrocity right here is 23 commits in one day, trying to get that GitLab CI/CD to work. Desperation, you know, and then at the end of May here, this was my reversion back to an earlier state and catching things up with the documentation. Also, just worth noting here that this doesn't, oh, I guess that was this spike here. It's worth noting that my deploy process changed. I shifted it. So instead of using GitLab CI/CD to do the builds and deployments, I switched to using a Firebase CLI. So it's not really necessary to know, but it meant that I didn't have to commit every time I wanted to test the deploy. I could just run it on the command line. So that's kind of why you see way less commits over here. So patterns clear though. Chaos, obviously here, this situation, and then a little more sustained success. And then look at this. This is where I launched. Hooray. During this project, my tools changed significantly also. From June onwards, I was pretty much exclusively in Cursor. I wasn't messing around with Copilot or Klein at the time. Cursor was working for me. And so this is also kind of fun. So this is my Cursor usage over time. Similar timeline, I'll overlay them in the next slide. But this is me first experimenting with it, and lots of usage, obviously. And then pretty steady use during the build. And then coming up on this note, or this point here, is when Travis was so kind and gave us corporate access to Cursor. So my usage decreased at that point. So thank you, Travis. I did have to switch back and forth between my account and Travis's account, but that's what happened there. That's why that dropped off. So just kind of neat to overlay for the sake of consistency, overlaying the commit velocity in my Cursor usage. So this is the real juice here in later summer when I was actually building real stuff that was doing the right thing. So the big limit, I think, with a little bit of perspective here is, and as you saw in the clips earlier, I was experimenting, right? I experimented with a bunch of different tools. I tried a whole bunch of different things. But really the ultimate goal is like, how do I maximize my development time? I don't need to be coding for hours on end. So how do I put my brain into this project and do as much as I possibly can in the time I have? I would get an agent working on a prompt. It'd be building something. I'd be watching it do it. You know, I'm just sitting there like, oh, this is fun. Good stuff. But what do I do? So I was really trying to solve this problem in a bunch of different ways. So early on, I was using an IDE to do the build. So there'd be an agent in the actual IDE writing code and changing stuff. And then I would be on the web on ChatGPT or Claude, and I'd be planning stuff. I'd be talking about the next thing. I'd be like figuring out the strategy for the next feature, or you know, just working ahead with the concepts, trying to get ahead of the agent. I had a big problem though, that I couldn't get, I mentioned this before, I couldn't get all of my docs into Claude, for instance. Claude has this way that you can like upload project docs, and you can have a project that has its own files. So it has a limit, I think, of like 20 files. So my documentation is growing every time I build a new thing. And it's like a pretty big directory of stuff. So I had a real problem getting that stuff into the web interface to actually have it know what's going on. I figured out I was messing around with these exporters. So I built a little tool to like take all of my docs and punch them all together into like somewhat sizable, like reasonably sized docs within that 20 file limit. And then I'd have to upload them one at a time to the web browser. It was a little little bit of friction. But it was this idea of like, okay, I need two tools here. I can't just use one and just have it code and code and code. I need to have strategy. Context windows, yeah, so context windows, right? We talked about this before. There's limits. You can't understand everything at once. Thousands of lines of documentation. How do I get this in there and have it make good decisions? Because sure enough, the agent writing the code can't do it because it's reading all my code. So like, how do you like bridge this gap between like the plan and the doing? I could discuss things, but I couldn't really capture anything. So if I made a decision on the web interface with all my docs up there, then what? I have to get this information out of the web interface and into my agent or into my doc somehow. So all these required steps, it required like efforts to like, okay, now I take this idea, I got to make sure I record that here, and then I got to do it there. A little cumbersome. But the one thing that I did find useful out of that process was feature implementation specs, I call them. So when I had the docs loaded, I was able to say, okay, we're working on off. Let's work on this login screen, for instance. So I could build a spec that was, digestible and manageable, not like, 1,000 lines or less, and download it, and then put that in my agent basically as a prompt to actually implement. And that was like, okay, this is actually getting me somewhere because I have a piece that's relevant based on the actual backbone of my project, and I can put that into the agent and it knows only what it really needs to know to do this. So that was a pattern that was promising, but obviously the rest of that workflow kind of sucked. So I did try, I think in that video earlier, it showed I tried multiple IDE agents and tools working at the same time. So I tried VS Code with Copilot. I tried Cursor running basically on the same local Git repository, same workspace. That was fun. I dabbled with that. Both implementing, trying to keep them sort of separated, but it was inevitable that like I'm kind of thinking about a certain part of the site, and like I give a prompt here, and then I give a prompt there, and then sure enough, they're like, oh, we're both changing the style sheets to match that, and things get kind of out of hand and unwieldy. So that was a fail. Don't recommend that. Having two different agents working on one code base, yeah, it's not really a good recipe. But I was still pushing it. I was trying to figure out how do I maximize my time and just spend time prompting and changing context and moving everything forward. So yeah, the thing why that didn't work is because the concerns are not separate. So you could do that in principle if you had really separate ideas like, okay, this is dashboard and this is front end. Like that could work, but I wasn't separating things in my mind like that because I'm trying to like get this part of the site built. Yeah, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, that type of idea. Let's see here. Yeah, tracking diffs. So every time an agent does something, you can usually summarize it and see like, what are the changes you made? But I was finding that certain tools were basically showing changes from the other agent and showing me stuff that it didn't actually work on. And so it was like saying, oh yeah, we did this. But it was like totally overlapped and a total mess. Definitely caused more headaches than it solved in that phase. So what worked? A huge breakthrough was when I figured out I could open two cursor windows, but one of them was focused on my docs and one of them was on the whole workspace. So this was cool. I don't know why it took me so long to figure it out, but all in due time. So workspace one was for strategic thinking. This is what I was doing on Claude on the web, for instance, but this time it had all my docs right there. It could read everything. For planning, strategy, generating specs, managing context. And then on the other side, in the actual code workspace, that's the actual code writing and updating. Executing. No overlap, no confusion, super clear separation of concerns. Workspace one is my product manager and architect. Workspace two is my implementer. Crucially, both are in the IDE. Both have the full context. So even though I'm in the docs, it can still read files a directory up if it needs to. Both evolve their respective workspaces. So you do something and make a decision, the same docs get changed and updated. The progress gets tracked. This was working. This is the formula. So here's what my evolved workflow, I guess you'd call it, it looks like in practice. I'd have a piece of work, a feature, a fix, a very focused target of my work session. I'd open up the docs, give a detailed prompt to the docs agent. I'd add screenshots, requirements, feedback about what I'm trying to do, maybe links to specific components or files, or if it's a bug, give it log reports saying I'm seeing this error when this happens. The docs agent would read through all my docs, and then I would generate an implementation spec, which is basically a markdown document that's portable. I'd review it, I'd flesh it out, iterate through it a little bit, polish it, and then I'd take that spec, go to my other workspace, open it up. I'd say, do it. 2 agents, 2 workspaces, 1 human orchestrating between them. I began building my cursor rules to help with this documentation maintenance. This is crucial. We'll talk about rules a little bit more. So I had this completion protocol. So when work is done, I had this archive process so that it would mark it as archived, set the status changed to completed or archived, and then it would review my actual canonical documentation and feed in the new stuff into the actual real main docs. Does anything need to be updated? Anything need to be changed to match what we just built? Capture decisions, capture new learning from each implementation. Feeds back into the docs system. Don't lose anything. Everything's captured. Ideally, canonical docs match your implementation specs that are archived, which matches what's actually in your code base. This is documentation-driven development, and this is what it looks like. And it worked really well. It's probably too small for you to read, but this is my implementation spec folder. So this is just showing September 4th, August 22nd to September 4th. So these are all just a snapshot of the features that I built, the different implementations that I made. So file names, a couple of them. So admin comment management, email notification system, deployment automation. Every spec is dated, organized, chronological, and you probably can't see that, but at the top here, this one says 2025-01-28. So I wasn't working in January. What the hell's that? So funny thing, AI never knows the date. It always seems to think it's whatever date it was last trained on. So, and even if you give it a rule, check the date before you write a date. It doesn't do it very well. So I had to catch this probably a dozen times where it's like, use the correct date, please, today, or I kind of gave up. I would be like, today is, use this date. It's amazing how such a fundamental thing is actually kind of a nuisance. So with all this systematization, yeah, they get things wrong. But the point isn't really perfection here. It's about having a system that's good enough to keep you organized and moving forward. I had figured it out. I cracked the code. This became my workflow to get this launch done. I built and implemented 85 specs over about a month on this project to get this over the finish line. This is the paper trail of what I did and how documentation-driven development works. So this is sort of the main, this is a unique doc. This is like my whole launch MVP spec. This, I'll show you this in Cursor in a second. It's 550 lines. It just gives you an example of the organizational level that I was working with here. 6 different phases, each with completion tracking, rollback procedures, success metrics, technical and business criteria, implementation metrics, showing what files are modified, how many lines of code, how many test iterations, key learnings, whether or not the canonical docs were updated. This is kind of enterprise level production deployment, you know, and this is something I did, just me and AI. It's pretty rad. And the AI didn't just implement it, it made it a system. Tracked, learned, and fed it back into the docs. This is how I would recommend you make AI much more than just a code generator. So let's have a quick look at that in Cursor. Launch, wait, hold on, which is it? Production launch spec, okay. Oh no, where is it? I thought I had this open, sorry. Oh, that's why. It's the wrong workspace. There we go. Aha. Okay. I had it open. I was right. Nope. There we go. Okay, so let's get that a little bigger. So I'll show you the markdown version of this. So I think it's worth noting that these documents are not for human reading, really. Like, this is computers for computers. So I added a lot of stuff. I added a lot of rules to this to kind of track things that I thought would be useful and interesting. But the ultimate purpose of this is to have all the context that you may need to do something, but it's not really meant for a human to read through and understand. It's kind of like, this is the, I guess, deployable document that can get the thing done. I'll point out this at the top. This is called front matter. This is a markdown tool that you can kind of have structured data at the top of a document. Super handy. I'm tracking status, when it was started, when I archived it, owner, what model was used, how many prompts, what other related things. So kind of neat to have all this stuff in the header. So we'll go switch back to the human readable view. So we'll just skim through this. I'm not going to read this, obviously, but just to give you a sense of what this looks like. So this is showing different phases. This is another huge thing, is like getting it to track progress through something. I'll show you more about that and why that's important. So as something gets done, check it off. So yeah, it's very satisfying looking at these, I think, at the end of the game. But just wanted to give you a sense of what one of these specs actually looks like. Rollback plan, timeline, success criteria. Yeah, and it's often more than you need. But as I said before, it's not for humans to read. I don't really care. It's for my agents to read. Obviously, for me to skim and make sure it's done right. But I'm not fully concerned about it, being super clear for me on first glance. Okay, let's switch back to that view, and I'm going to do that thing. 1 second. TB near projector. Yes. Okay. Okay, so we looked at that in Cursor. Yeah, anyway, so that workflow, I did it. I launched. A successful deployment, immediate adoption. We had 140 or some paying users within the first month, pretty good. Stable production system with paying customers, real business, real content, real users. Yeah, but this is not where my story ends. This is not where we end this talk. I shared some of the pivotal shifts after the crash, what worked, the things that emerged for me to get me over the finish line. What did I learn that I could repeat? So let me give you some tips. So fundamental breakthrough, documentation doesn't follow development. It drives it. I've heard about this even. Travis, I think, gave me some advice years ago that was when you're building a new feature, write the docs first. Write out how you want this to work, how the user will interact with it. And I did that before a little bit, but it was kind of in my mind that, you build a spec, you figure out what you're building before you try to build it. Now with AI, this gets way, way better. Fundamental breakthrough. So the better your docs are, the fewer prompts you need and the higher your success rate. This doesn't mean they don't change. It doesn't mean they're perfect when you start, but it's about maximizing your chance of having that prompt deliver the result in one iteration. Get your docs as close to complete as possible before getting your AI to write any code. That's paradigm shift. That's document-driven development. So I got 9. I got 9 tips. This font messes me up. This AI, it looks like A1 to me when I read it. But anyway, it's not 11 or A1. It is 9 tips for AI development. Here we go. Anything here? Yeah, so pretty much each one of these was because of a real limit I hit. I hit a limit and developed a new technique. I hit another limit, developed a new technique. And they're not theoretical. This is battle-tested patterns that emerged from failure and then got me systematized to a successful launch. So we looked at this version of this earlier. So dual workspace. This is about maximizing your time and the AI compute power. human is switching context between planning, strategy, and new spec development, implementation, QA, feedback, logs, errors, user testing, etc. Sorry, I just realized we're already at 60 minutes. I'm going to go a little faster at the end of this, but all this slide deck will be available with QR code at the end, of course. I'm not going to skip the tips. Don't worry. This is the important part. So yeah, I highly recommend trying the 2-agent workflow. 3-stage quality loop. So this happens within those 2 workspaces, 3 stages, but it's a loop. It's not linear. Stage 1, build the spec, review the code base as needed, review the existing documentation, and anything else you give it, build the context up, make that spec. I review it, I validate it, I refine it. If there's something amiss, I fix it. Try to catch everything at this phase before I even start writing code. And then I take that spec, and in the implementation agent, I do a review again. I say, check this out, review the code. You know, is everything aligned? Does everything make sense? So really helpful just to kind of get that spec to a point where it's as accurate as possible. It matches your docs, it matches your code, except for obviously what's not been built yet. But really, really key point to reduce errors and reduce issues down the road. Tip 3. So we talked about these 2 different terms, but very different. So canonical docs, this is what should be built. This is the plan for the whole site build. Implementation specs are how to build it. So canonical is the map. They define architecture, you know, APIs, security rules, what's connected and where. And they're living documents. That's always obviously the crux of this. You have to evolve this as you go. Keep them current, keep them updated when things change. Just a little look at the documentation structure. So this is the G School site and the actual canonical docs structure. Nicely organized. I kind of just trust my agents to manage this and keep them updated, but sometimes I'll dig through and find stuff or search for things, but mostly this is, again, docs for AI to consume. Tip 4, implementation specs as living checkpoint systems. So I've mentioned this term a bunch, but basically the problem I was running into is like I plan out a whole thing in a chat, I get somewhere, I start building like maybe a document or something to store it all, and then context is full. I'm like, oh, you start a new chat to like have a better experience. And that was really annoying. So I realized I needed an artifact. I needed to pull something out of that that lived beyond that chat session. So that's what this spec is, this implementation spec. Game changer. So and the other thing about this is every time you iterate, and you can do this with rules, update the spec, track your progress. Every time something's changed or completed, mark it off. Peace of mind, no lost progress. Maintain your context. Tip 5, precision language. So through my work, I kind of think I was getting trained by AI, to be honest. I was learning new terms and new words that I hadn't really used before. And some of them have stuck. And so these are the ones that have stuck, which I feel like are helpful. So alignment. And this is just to clarify, this is not philosophical alignment like, is AI going to kill humanity? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about alignment of like this spec to this set of docs to this code. Is this aligned? Synthesize. So when things are not aligned or they're overlapping, I want to merge these together. So synthesize is the word I like to like take this that's got some of the progress and some of the answer and then this and get them put together. Specification, a document outlining the what and the how of implementation. It's the plan. Implementation, doing the work outlined in the spec. Write the code, build the thing. Canonical docs, high-level architecture, truth. Stub is a neat one too. So it's a placeholder. I never used this until I started doing vibe coding stuff. It's just the beginning of the thing that you're building. So create a file, create the basic functionality, maybe pseudocode. That's the start of the development process. Similarly, scaffold is another term that's new to me that I've never used before. Build the framework, the skeleton of what you're building, sketch it out. It's the foundation of the feature that's getting built. So shared vocabulary, reduced ambiguity. For me, this is what I was using for these prompts to help me get to where I want it to get. It's subtle, but it matters. Tip 6, identify misalignments. So a lot of the time I would hit a limit where the agent wouldn't really check the other patterns in the code. It would sort of just do a thing and just invent a whole new solution for something that already has been solved. So they don't naturally self-check. They won't automatically look for context unless that's built into the rules or in the prompt. They'll lose the big picture. They might duplicate patterns, etc. Solution, before you do that, identify the misalignments. Does this align with the existing patterns? Is this dry? They will not do this by default. So many times I caught it rebuilding something or building a completely different pattern that was duplicating existing work. Catch inconsistencies before they become problems. Tip 7, when you get to 1,000 lines, time to refactor. So I ran into a lot of this earlier. It's probably going to be less and less of a problem going forward as capacity increases, but I think it's like a efficiency rule. And once you get to 1,000 lines, it's harder for the tool to actually hold everything in mind and make proper substitutions. It's really good at refactoring, but I would recommend when you ask for a refactor, get it to show you the plan and then tell it to make it half as complicated. Tip 8, commit message generation. Writing good commit messages is tedious, especially when you didn't write the code. So AI does a great job of this. It can read the diff and understand exactly what's been done, even if that agent didn't do the work. I review it, and then I commit. So I recommend do not let your agent auto-commit. Yeah, there we go. Stay in control. This is just an example of a very detailed commit message from my workflow. So core files, things that changed, what happened, documentation, impact, pretty cool. Pretty complete record of the thing that happened. Tip number 9, build your own rules. So do you find yourself hitting a thing that you already tried to or dealt with yesterday? Is it repeating a problem that you've already kind of run into? Make it a rule. So in my rules for the G School site, it is, I think I have 715 lines of rules. It's not configuration, it's innovation that I've captured into my system. The agent will help you maintain this. So super helpful. Oh, like you run into a thing, I've asked you to do this multiple times, let's make a rule, you know? So I didn't write those myself, obviously, but it's very helpful to kind of capture those as rules because they will more often than not get followed when you prompt in new sessions. If you hit a limit, document the solution, make a rule, don't hit it again. So yeah, we're getting late here, so I'm going to zoom through this as well. Just have a couple more slides. So G School launched. I learned how to vibe code. How can I use this in my day-to-day work? I've developed this system and an idea for a more thorough tool, but I call it flow notes. So it's essentially a way for me to manage my work. Everything that comes in, I can manage it as a spec, as a document. I give all the context to it. I track everything. I can actually work on that spec in the code base, do the work, track it, and then from that context, I can generate a whole bunch of different artifacts, whether it's an email update or a summary after completion or a merge request message. So for me, this is basically everything I've learned into daily workflow. I've built a little Basecamp API integration so I can pull in Basecamp to-dos, all the comments, all the details. I can get it to summarize stuff. Basically, everything I do at Hop Studios now is going through my note system, through this flow note system. And this is my document-driven development process in action. Super quick. So this is the Basecamp JSON from the API, and then with my prompts and my rules, I generate a markdown document from that initial to-do, and then I will add extra context. I will say, oh, we should do it this way. This needs to work. Let's investigate that. It's basically like the foundation of every piece of work I do comes into my system, and then I can use AI within Cursor to do the work, do the planning, do the investigation, and get this where I can recommend a solution or fix the thing. And as I said, artifacts. So the complete task lifecycle is captured every time I send a new message on that to-do. Every piece of learning that I have, I track it in there so that when I come back to this a few days later, I know that that context is absolutely perfectly captured. As I said, client communication, Basecamp notes, review information, it's all kind of there. Handoff documents, that's also something I've used this for, is to hand off to other developers. I can figure out exactly what needs to be done and basically develop the spec and say, okay, now you take this, you go do the work. Which is, I haven't yet got everybody up to speed at Top Studios, but that's my goal, is to be able to have this as like, all my knowledge and expertise goes into this, now you just do it. Whether that's an agent or a human, you know, it sort of depends on the end product. So a brief bit about the vision. So right now, I've got this workflow that I'm using every day. My goal is to expand it and get my team using it potentially. Eventually, I'm actually like wanting to build this into a more robust tool that can be used by teams, have this project knowledge be stored on the cloud so everybody can access it, have an overlay over Basecamp so you can generate these documents and summarize things from a spec that's different than the to-do. Web app, cursor extension, project management support, etc. So my goal is to kind of develop this to a point where other teams and other people can experiment with this and bring documentation-driven workflow into your everyday work. So we got there. Sorry for the overtime here. What time's the next session? Now? Oh, geez. Well, apologies. We started 5 minutes late, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for bearing with me. And yeah, I hope that you all got something tangible out of that. I hope that wasn't too dense or too wordy. So like, but yeah, thank you very much for your time. And thanks to the EE team. Probably don't have time for questions right now, I would assume.
5 minutes?
Take a beat? Yeah, okay, great. I would love to hear feedback and answer some questions if you want to chat, but I understand there's the biological reasons here people need to leave. We're all human still, unfortunately. Yeah, sorry if you were sitting there waiting to run to the washroom. That's yeah, but yeah, happy to chat. Anybody have any feedback or questions? Yeah, we can grab the mic here and.
It's a really basic question. So obviously you ended up using Cursor as your IDE. I'm still using VS Code. At what point did VS Code and Copilot, was there that kind of switch over where you realized you needed to move to Cursor? Was there a particular point where?
Yeah, well, I think I tried Cursor. I found success with it. And then I was getting these emails from Copilot and saying, oh, it's Copilot Pro, give it a try. And so I tried it. And I honestly found that it just wasn't as good, just wasn't as eager. I found Cursor would immediately, agent mode was like, right away, I'll go do the thing. But Copilot, I had to repeatedly say, okay, great, that sounds good, like a good plan. Can you do it now? Can you like go change the code? And it just was like 10% as eager as Cursor. Cursor would start, you know, to its fault sometimes, but like it was more eagerly ready to start making changes. Whereas it seems like Copilot comes at it differently. It was like, we're an assistant. We'll help you plan stuff and give you answers, but it's not really, we're not as agentic, I would say, as Cursor.
Amazing, thank you. And then again, another really basic one. I think you predominantly use Claude, did you?
The model is automatically chosen. I'm usually using auto mode in Cursor. So it will select it, but yeah, I think it's usually using a 3.5, Claude 3.5, but you can select it.
I was wondering, you know, if there was a point that you moved from ChatGPT over to Claude or?
On the web, yes.
Yeah.
I did find Claude was more flexible and more useful for me at the time than ChatGPT's web interface. But I don't know if I think that was just a preference thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Great talk. Thank you
Awesome.
so much. Cheers.
Travis, yes.
You do in 3 seconds. Just one quick point, which is that you know, Cursor is a drop-in replacement for VS Code. So if you know your keyboard shortcuts and your extensions, it's all, is it the same
built
code
on
base?
yeah, it's an open source thing. It's just,
Yeah.
it's so much the same.
So it is very easy to switch from VS Code to Cursor, a little harder to switch to Copilot. My question for you is, how long, on average, or even at an extreme, would an agent run and do work while you were doing something else, like 2 minutes, 20 minutes? Like
Yeah,
what were you experiencing?
I'd say it varied, but unless it got stuck, unless there was some command that ran that just wouldn't run, it was probably like 4 to 10 minute cycles. Like I would say if you're getting longer than 5 minutes, it's probably something's wrong, or you're giving it too much to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some
And sometimes with a really thorough spec, it could iterate longer and actually keep building for longer. But yeah, I haven't really timed it. I did towards the end of that project start getting it to track how many lines changed, how many prompts, just because I wanted some metadata on it. So I actually have some of that data. I could dig into it. I don't know if it has time of like each prompt though. That's a little more detail than I think I got. Any other questions? Feedback? Yeah.
What was the idea behind running 2 IDEs at once?
What was the idea?
Yeah.
Because I needed to work.
You wanted to do more
I mean, I get a prompt going, and then I needed to keep working because like you can't really edit stuff in the IDE as it's doing stuff. Like it's like if I do, it's kind of getting overturned by what Cursor's doing, and so it's a little dodgy to try to work on the same code or any code in the IDE that's open. Right. So it was more just like that's working and implementing. What do I do with my time and my brain power?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes it's great. And at night, sometimes you'll be like prompt and chill out, but it doesn't work for Hop Studios. You know, I gotta be useful as much as possible.
So your IDE docs, is it running in the same code?
Yeah, it's in the same repository. In that instance, for the G School site, it was a docs folder with all the canonical stuff, and I'd have my implementations in there as well. But for the flow notes workflow that I'm now using for my day-to-day stuff, it's a totally different workspace so that I can change branches and stuff in my actual client folder, and it's not impacting that. I'm basically having my docs repository totally separate.
Right, awesome. All right, great talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt? Oh. Yeah, well, yeah, so it's the same answer. for the G School project, yeah, they were in the same repo for sure. Pass it down. Hi.
So Sanity, how much was that?
It's quite affordable. It's like
Is it?
$15 a month or something, and scales automatically. I haven't hit any limits on it at all. It's quite, the entry level plan is quite good.
Right.
Yeah. Is it self-hosted as well? Yep, it's all hosted. I mean, it's not hosted like Expression Engine though. It's like the cloud service is hosted. The data's there. You got to connect with an API key and get the data you want. So it doesn't do your website for you, but it does the content and gives you the content. Okay, I think that's everybody. Thanks so much, everybody. And again, sorry for going over time.